Good Saturday morning of the 14th week in ordinary time. It is also today, the actual day, July 3rd. And tomorrow is the 4th of July. I thought for just a minute, if I can reflect, just to reflect on our country, okay? If you don't mind. I love this. There is a wonderful line in the movie The Godfather, naturally, but the secondary Bible in my life, the second Bible, whatever, in which the Undertaker, it's the opening scene. It's the absolutely opening scene in The Godfather. And what he said, the Undertaker says, "I believe in America. It's in America that I made my fortune." And he says it with a wonderful accent. "I believe in America. In America, I made my fortune." It could have been my father saying that. And I think of the land as a land of opportunity. It's the truth. I think you need to be a child of an immigrant to understand what I'm about to say. It takes nothing away from the old countries. My father, he called Italy. He never called it Italy. He called it the old country because it was for him an old country. And you see, a new world. It was more than a discovery. It was an opportunity. People like my father came here at 18, 19 years old. They acquired a trade. My father went into restaurants, okay? That's an easy place to get started. You learn your trade. He's a busboy. You learn your trade one step at a time. Became a chef, a very good one. In fact, he was a chef under and studied under Mario Conca. Yeah, Mario Conca was his last name. I think it was Mario Conca. He was one of the foremost cooks in the country, fish specialist. My father worked with him and studied under him. In fact, Hotel International, the great magazine for the hotel industry, restaurant industry, ranked Conca one of the top food cooks in the world. Yeah, Conca. I met him. He was regal, and my father was his student, was his companion, student, fellow worker. Yeah. So my father could cook. My father could really cook. If you ever had a lobster from my father, you would never order one in a restaurant because it would be you wouldn't be satisfied. He was that good. My mother was spoiled. My mother was the first feminist. She couldn't boil water. She didn't have to. Her mother, we lived with, was a superb Italian cook, and my father did the rest. Forget about it. We were living on the restaurant quality. I remember when I got in the seminary, one of my classmates, oh God, he was so sweet, and he said, "God, the food is so good here." And he was talking about something, I don't know what, meatloaf. And I looked at him, meatloaf. You tried. How about lobster? Good grief. Yeah, I was being a snob. I was 18. Whatever, you see. Anyway, this country invited people like my father, and they made a living here. They acquired and applied their skills. They married and raised their children, and they made sure to the public schools and the Catholic, or the private schools, but Catholic schools especially, they took children of immigrants and brought them into the mainstream. I have so much respect for the sisters, the Apostles of the Sacred Heart here in St. Louis, Coriezo High School. They had Sacred Heart Academy in New Haven, okay, plus a number of other schools. They were Italian women, Italian nuns who taught that generation of Italians, like my mother, okay, Italian Americans, the English language, and they prepared them for professional lives. My mother was prepared to be a teacher. She went to college. My mother went to college in 1920, what was it, 1922, 23, 100 years ago. See, these immigrants understood the genius of America. It was an opportunity. The public schools, the Catholic schools, we prepared. Our girls, our men and women were prepared to live good and productive lives. Some in the trades, but many, many went to college. My Uncle Giulio graduated from Yale. It's my mother's brother, a younger brother. So in the late 30s, he graduated from Yale. He probably learned English in kindergarten. Went to Yale. Think about that, one of the foremost universities in the world. That's the immigrant for you. Talk about Jewish intimates. Oh my God. In my neighborhood, I can prove this to you. These were all, in my neighborhood, Russian and German Jews, especially Russian Jews, I think, as I remember. Almost all the kids in my class that were Jewish, and a lot of them, they were sons and daughters of immigrants. Not only escaping the Nazis, these people came in the 20s, they were escaping the Russians, the pogroms, and they brought their trades with them. Anytime you go in a grocery store and you buy a bagel, if it's a Lender bagel, okay? Kraft owns them now. Marvin Lender is my classmate. We used to get bagels out of his garage when they were baking them in the garage. Best bagels in the world. It was the brothers, Marvin and his older brother, Sam, and another brother, I can't remember his name now. They parlayed that. And they learned how to fast freeze them, and that frozen bagel. They became millionaires. Anyway, that was the neighborhood. Immigrants. Who wasn't at least the grandchild of an immigrant? If that isn't the story of America. Every time I think of a bagel, I see a Lender bagel, I think, that's Marvin's. It's Marvin's. See? Classmate. Lived at one street over from me. We used to play basketball in the backyard, in his backyard, where he had a basket and attached to the garage. And in the garage was the bakery. That's where they made the bagels. So we'd shoot a few baskets and eat a bagel that came out of the oven. Trust me, you'd have nothing like it. It was fabulous beyond fabulous. That's the truth. And many of us came from parents that went into the restaurant business. My mother was educated. She went to college. She was a school teacher. And her brother went to Yale. See? Those immigrants, now my grandmother was an immigrant. My grandfather was an immigrant. They knew education was the key, and America provided it. Provided it in the public schools, and it provided it, especially the nuns, they provided it for immigrant children who spoke the language. The apostles of the Sacred Heart took little Italian girls and boys, especially little Italian girls, and taught them the English language. Yes, that's the truth. When I go by the Sacred Heart Academy, the Corriezos right down the street from here, I think that I joke and say, some of you actually taught my mother, you know? When? 100 years ago, you know, joking. But there's a truth in it. The truth is, we are children of immigrants. This country is a country of immigrants. The only ones who are not immigrants are the blacks who are forced here, and the Native Americans who are here for thousands and thousands of years. And in that sense, there is a tragic sadness in the American experience. While it was the invitational home to Europeans and Asians, it was a cruel, cruel world to blacks, the African slave, and the Native American whom, through disease especially, we killed, we slaughtered. That is the great tragedy of the American experience. As much as it gave me a life and a future, it took that life away from so many Native Americans. It took their culture away. Fortunately, it's rebounding now. The Native American community is rediscovering itself, as the black community has, especially starting with Martin Luther King. Thank God. Rediscovering who they are, where they came from, but especially who they are. And I think my few Native American friends up in Ontario, they have that in them. They have recovered who they are. In fact, Lark Ritchie, he was the son of a hunting guide. Lark is half Italian. His mother's from Milan. And his father is half Dutch and half Native American. And Lark is all Native American, all Ojibwe. Trust me. I can't say I blame him. If I were in his shoes, I would choose that. I would choose my native heritage. Yeah. It's special when he has it. He has it in spades, believe me. When you're with Lark Ritchie, he not only looks Native American, he is Native American. Though his mother speaks with a very thick Milanese accent like my father. It's neat. The American experience. We're all children of emigration. We were invited here by opportunity. That's it, Frank. A beacon of freedom and hope. That's the truth. The great line, I believe in America. In America made my fortune. Indeed. Indeed you did. Indeed we did.